Most people think my job is boring. I spend my day examining the financial health of businesses, nonprofit organizations, government agencies, and wealthy businessmen. I am the comptroller and lead a team that performs audits for several clients throughout the city. Typically, when the IRS is breathing down a company's neck, we get the call and spend a few days to a few weeks going through their books. Most of the time, it turns out to be pretty straightforward, but every once in a while, we find a surprise or two. Today, I got the biggest surprise of my life, but the audit we were doing had nothing to do with it. It had to do with what I saw outside my window. For the past 3 weeks, my small team of investigators and I had been sitting in the offices of Landmass Development Group, looking into the worst accounting system I had ever encountered. Landmass called us in because they are under investigation by the State Inspector General's office for contract mismanagement and billing fraud on several road and bridge construction projects. This is the second time the state has accused them of financial irregularities, and the second time we have audited their books in an attempt to pull their asses out of the fire. This time, however, I'm not sure we can pull off the miracle they want. My team consists of 3 of the best computer scientists I've ever had the pleasure of working with. Red is the informal leader of the group, and Ian and Jackie take the lead from time to time. They can do amazing things with computers and can find the proverbial needle in a haystack, no matter how deep the pile is. We take a microscopic look at everything in the landmass accounting database and check every transaction against company records. My 3 geeks, as they call themselves, will find anything that is questionable or out of line. My group also includes 2 of the most tenacious accountants in the business, Adriana and Mandy. Both women believe that client files are like their own children that they can do with as they see fit. Most of the time, they have an easygoing demeanor, but when the situation calls for it, they can be downright ruthless. Don't lie to them, don't try to hide anything from them, and never talk down to them. But pestering them is the worst thing you can do. Both are married, they have loving families, and anyone who thinks they'll jeopardize that could end up on the floor staring at the ceiling. I've asked them not to break arms or legs where a slap on the wrist could do the trick, but I will support them no matter what happens. All 5 members of my team have earned my respect dozens of times for their work ethic and dedication. I expect them to quickly clean up the mess at Landmass. So what do? I manage the work, communicate with the client, and write the final audit report. Yes, you're right. I sit on my butt all day pretending to be busy while my team does all the hard work. At the end, I summarize and give the client the bad news. I estimated that the landmass audit should have taken about 3 weeks to complete. During our stay, we enjoyed luxurious offices, each with windows overlooking the city, all the computer equipment we asked for, and even 2 secretaries to run our errands. We even got our own coffee maker. I think landmass management saw fit to be extremely accommodating to us to make sure we got the best of everything. My office is at one end of the hallway on the 21st floor, and everyone else's is at the other end. I got an office belonging to one of the managing partners who is on extended medical leave. It looked like something out of a 1930s movie. Dark wood paneling everywhere, lush carpet, bookshelves of great books, a giant antique globe, lots of awards, plaques, and trophies, a huge antique brass telescope, even a giant stuffed marlin. The mahogany desk, Edwardian chairs, and leather couch reminded me of the furnishings of the Oval Office in the White House. It was all too refined. I got an idea of how landmass management spent its money. During one of my periods of inactivity, my thoughts began to wander. I leaned back in my chair and stared out the window. Across the street was another of the giant high-rise chrome and glass office buildings that dotted the business district. From my desk, I couldn't see a single person in the office. The sunlight reflected in the glass. I figured if I couldn't see them, they couldn't see me. I smiled. I smiled because I realized, directly across the street were the offices of Enterprise Research and Development. My wife Cheryl works for Enterprise as an account manager. I've been to her office several times and met many of her coworkers. Most of them weren't bad people, but there were a couple I didn't like too much. But I didn't have to work with them. Cheryl did. Cheryl's office was on the 20th floor, to the left of my window. I got up and walked over to the window to see if I could find her room. It took a few minutes to determine which window was hers, but even after finding it, I couldn't make out anything on the other side of the glass. Then I looked to my right and saw that I was standing next to a huge brass telescope. I went to my door and closed it, then went back to the telescope. After fiddling with the knobs for a couple minutes, I focused it and found Cheryl's office. I could see her clearly now. I looked at the front of the scope and saw a bluish filter that I realized acted as a polarizing agent, like those sunglasses that take away the glare on a sunny day at the beach. To the naked eye, the glass windows of the building looked like shimmering gold mirrors. If viewed through a telescope with a polarizing filter attached, they were just clear glass. I looked through it again and saw my beauty sitting at her desk, looking into a computer monitor. There sat the most beautiful blonde-haired woman I had ever had the honor of holding in my arms, the love of my life for the past 9 years. After a few more adjustments to the old scope, I was able to magnify the image enough that I could almost read the words being displayed on her computer screen. I smiled again, thinking how much industrial espionage happens by looking over someone's shoulder while they're working. Maybe that's how Landmass was getting out to some of its competitors. Maybe I'll tell my team about it and see what they think. Not that we can do anything about it. I distanced myself enough that Cheryl's office windows came into view and stood watching her work. My thoughts traveled to places and times other than where I was. I was thinking about Cheryl. I saw her clearly in my mind's eye. I saw her standing by our bed at home and smiling at me with her wide, beautiful smile. She was smart, funny, caring, honest, and most importantly, she loved me. But I think I loved her more. The phone rang, bringing me back to the boring real world of the landmass audit. I panicked for a moment, remembering the state I was in, but I knew no one would see me on the phone. Hello? Hey, boss, Mandy said. Would you like to join us for lunch? Red found a little cafe across the street that might be our new favorite place. How about it? Thanks, Mandy, but I need to make some phone calls. If you can get me a sandwich and a soda, I'd appreciate it. A tuna salad would be nice. Maybe tomorrow. Okay, just remember to get some air every now and then, and go home at a reasonable time. No problem. Thanks, Mandy. Looking around my temporary desk, I didn't see anything that couldn't wait until tomorrow. I went back to the telescope to look at my beautiful wife some more and fantasize about the good times. This time, I saw that she wasn't alone. Leaning against the edge of her desk was a man I remembered from their Christmas party. Brad, something like that. He was one of those people I put on my list of people I didn't like too much. He seemed to spend a lot more time with Cheryl than I was comfortable with. Cheryl just brushed me off and told me that he was one of her bosses, and she would have to play along with him if she wanted to move up in the company. I felt bad about it, but I didn't think any more about it. I watched what was going on for a very long time. I saw nothing but Cheryl talking to her boss. It looked like normal business activity, so I didn't give it another thought. The man stood up and turned to leave. Cheryl leaned back in her chair, and the man returned. I thought he was leaving, but apparently he wasn't. He merely closed the door to Cheryl's office, pulled a chair over to Cheryl, and sat down. They were sitting side by side at her desk when Cheryl lifted her legs and placed them in his lap. She took off her shoes. My heart started beating a little faster. Jesus Christ, what's going on? I said out loud. I almost exploded. I tore myself away from the telescope and started pacing around the room. I didn't know what to do. My brain wasn't working and my heart was beating at breakneck speed. Finally, I saw my cell phone on the table and grabbed it. I turned back to the telescope and saw that now she was literally cheating on me. She was having fun with this bastard. I pressed Cheryl's office number on the speed dial of my cell phone. Cheryl turned her head toward the phone, and I saw her reach out to answer it. Hi, honey, she said sweetly. This is a nice surprise. How are you? For a moment, I was at a loss for words. I was talking to my wife on my cell phone the moment she cheated on me. There was no hint in her voice that anything was going on. Honey, is everything okay? she asked when I couldn't make a sound. Just wanted to say that I can't wait for tonight to see you again. Honey, that's so sweet. I can't wait to be with you too. Listen, I'm a little busy right now. Can I call you back this afternoon? Sure. Why don't you go back to what you were doing and call me when you're done? Enjoy yourself. Bye. I watched as she hung up. Then she did something I never expected in a million years. She raised her middle finger and pointed it at the phone. She said, "Screw you," to the phone and to me. And then they went on with what they were doing. I fell to the floor, at least I thought I did, because when I opened my eyes again, Mandy was kneeling next to me and looking at my face. Boss, what's wrong? She asked worriedly. Adriana's calling 911. What's going on? I don't know, I muttered. I think I passed out. I don't. Just lie there and relax, she interrupted. The paramedics will be here soon. I closed my eyes and saw only Cheryl pointing her middle finger at the phone. After a while, I heard a noise outside the door and people talking. When I opened my eyes again, I saw a fireman. He put a blood pressure cuff on my arm and pressed a button. He listened to my heartbeat and put an oxygen mask over my mouth and nose. He also performed a series of emergency procedures that I had only seen on television. Hello, Mr. Hughes. Can you tell me what happened? The fireman asked. I was just looking out the window and everything around me went black. Were you stressed or something? Your blood pressure is really high. Well, yeah, no. How are you feeling now? I'm fine. I probably should have heeded the doctor's advice and started taking my blood pressure medicine. Sir, if you can sit up, I'll take your blood pressure again. He did so. It was still high. After a couple minutes, I was able to move to the couch, with help, of course. I told the fireman I didn't want to go to the hospital. He took my blood pressure again, and it had come down, but was still above normal. Sir, do you think you'll be okay now? I'll be fine. Thank you for coming down here. I'll just call my doctor and tell him what happened. Thank you for helping. They left. I relaxed on the couch with Mandy holding my hand the whole time. I forced myself to make a brave face and smiled slightly at Mandy. Are you going to be okay? She asked. I don't know. I think I'll just take the rest of the day off. I don't think so. From across the room came an authoritative voice that I'd never argued with before. Adriana stood at the window with her hands on her hips, glaring at me with a frown. You're not going anywhere until you tell us the truth. We're your friends, Marty. Now spill it. Red, Ian, and Jackie stood around my desk, looking concerned and a little puzzled by what Adriana had said. Nothing happened. I just passed out, that's all. Screw Marty! Shouted Adriana. Then she slowly raised her hand and pointed it at the telescope. What did you see? All the sadness came over me. I started to hyperventilate. Marty, relax, Mandy whispered in my ear. Whatever it is, we're all here for you. Everything's going to be okay. No, it won't, I muttered. I started to tear up again, but I tried my best to control my emotions. I started to shake, and then I felt 4 arms wrap around me. Adriana joined Mandy on the couch, trying to make my world whole again. I just sat there shaking and looking at the floor. Red, get some ice and bottled water, maybe some sodas too, Adriana ordered. Jan, put a conference sign on the door. Jackie, get some extra chairs. We're going to have a team meeting. A few minutes later, with the door closed, the team and I were sitting in a circle, me on the couch and Mandy and Adriana hugging me. Mandy was dousing me with ice water. Adriana leaned forward and turned my head to face her. She spoke softly, as if to a child. Okay, Marty. No nonsense this time. What did you see? I laid out everything that had come to a boil. I told them everything without leaving out a single disgusting detail. I wanted to cry at the end, but I was too exhausted. I just sat on the couch looking at my hands and thought about my completely ruined life. What do you want to do, Marty? Adriana asked in her gentle, motherly voice. I thought for a long time. I loved Cheryl with my whole being. I didn't want to lose her. Hell, I'd die if I did. But what I saw through the telescope changed things. Whatever I thought about Cheryl and our life together, in particular our marriage, was now under review. The whole past was in question. I know what I saw, and it hurt like hell. But what does it all mean? What was going on? I didn't know what to do, not knowing everything about everything. I looked around at my team, my friends, and started talking. Guys, I have a problem, a big problem, but I don't want you to get involved. Blow it out of your ass, Marty, Jackie threw at me. My little emo girl computer guy stared back at me with his overly dark eyes. I'd never been a fan of piercings and tattoos, but Jackie had convinced me over and over again that despite her hands decorated with drawings of snakes and dragons, 12 earrings, a diamond stud in her nose, a gold eyebrow ring, a gold bar in her tongue, and who knows how many others hidden elsewhere, she was by far the most intelligent and caring person I'd ever met. I sat stunned, because in all the time I'd known her, she'd never said anything stronger than damn. Marty, Jackie said, looking me straight in the eye. We're a team, and what's more, we're friends. Friends don't let friends in trouble stand alone. We're going to help you. Whatever you want, we'll do it, short of killing you. Mandy turned to me and said, She's right, Marty. You're hurting right now and you probably want to die, but the one thing I know for sure is that as long as you have friends, you have hope. You'll survive. Whatever you decide to do, we'll be by your side all the way. We'll help you. You just need to lead us like you always do. Tell us what you want, and we'll make it happen. Silence filled the room as I thought about what I wanted. What I wanted most, no, what I needed most, was to know what kind of trouble my marriage was in. I needed to know everything Cheryl was keeping from me. Then I could decide which way to go. Until then, I'd have to endure the destructive images conjured up in my mind. But the image of her middle finger pointing at the phone was destructive enough. I need to know, I said finally. I need to know everything. Who she was with, for how long, how many times, what she did, everything. The one answer I need most, and the one I'll probably never get, is why. Why did she do this to me? Maybe there's something wrong with me, something I can't give her. Don't start blaming yourself, Adriana said. You don't know if you're to blame for anything. I can say for myself that all the years I've known you, you've been the perfect gentleman and friend. I don't know what's going on, but by golly, we'll get to the bottom of it. And if things don't turn out the way you want them to, you always have us to help you through it. We'll always be there for you, Marty. Guys, we need to make some plans, Mandy turned to the group. Red, Ian, and Jackie, you three think about finding out something about where she works. She's doing it over there, so we need to know more on that side. Adriana and I will try to find out anything that isn't work-related. Brainstorm some ideas and let's get together at 4 o'clock. Marty, go down to my office and lie down on the couch. I want you to relax. I want you to stay away from the telescope for the rest of the day. You've seen enough. I'll have someone check things out from here. I went into Mandy's office and lay down on the couch. At 4 o'clock, Jana came into the room and told me that everyone was gathering in my office. I had always liked Jan. She was always a little quiet, but when she said something, everyone paid attention. For her 24 years, she had an aura of maturity that seemed far beyond her years. She also had an off-the-charts IQ. Her Asian background gave her an air of mystery that made her seem both attractive and yet aloof and enigmatic at the same time. She took my hand and walked with me down the hall. When everyone was back in their seats, Adriana led the meeting and began taking notes. I thought it was odd that she was taking notes on plans to invade my wife's privacy and reveal her hidden sides, but I didn't say anything. Mostly everyone was talking around me. I just sat and listened. When the meeting was over and the plan was formulated, everyone went off to accomplish their assigned tasks, just like any other inspection we had done in the past. All I had to do was do what I usually did, sit and look busy and hand over my credit card for supplies. Marty, can you go home tonight? Asked Mandy. I don't think I can face her, I mumbled through my fingers. I think I'll just stay here until she goes to bed and then crawl home. I hope I don't have to talk to her tonight. I can't trust myself. I might say something I don't want to. Can you go out of town on a business trip? She asked. Maybe, but I have to think about it. I don't want to be around her this weekend, so I'll have to come up with some excuse to get out of the house. Maybe my dad will have an accident or something. I'll think about it and let you know. If you need somewhere to stay for a few days, you can always come to my house. We have a guest room you can use. I'll tell Aaron and the kids and let them know you can come over. I stared through the telescope at the empty office for a long time. The whole movie played over and over in my head, allowing me to relive the pain multiple times. I left the office after 9 and took the long way home, arriving there after 10. Thankfully, Cheryl was already asleep. As quietly as possible, I got my clothes ready for the next day and showered. Cheryl still hadn't moved. She must have been tired after all the work at the office today. I went to the guest room and pulled the blanket over my head. I got up before dawn and headed out before Cheryl woke up. I couldn't look her in the eye knowing what I knew. All that was left was to figure out how to survive. I arrived at the landmass office before anyone else and set the coffee brewing. Once in the office, I stared at the telescope like it was a demon. I was afraid to go near it. Around 9 o'clock, I strolled down the hall to see what my team was doing. Jan was sitting at her computer doing something incomprehensible. She smiled at me when I poked my head through the door. "Where is everyone?" I asked. "Getting ready," she replied with a smile, returning to her computer. Inscrutable these Asians, I thought, returning to my desk. Just after 10 o'clock, Red walked into the office carrying several large boxes on a cart. I watched him get to work without saying a word to me. Red is a walking contradiction. A glance at him reveals a tall, red-haired man with a freckled face and outdated glasses. He looked like every stereotypical geek we've ever met, wearing Star Trek t-shirts. He often wore a Star Trek shirt and an Indiana Jones-style fedora, but that was only part of his charm. Away from the office, he was anything but a geek. I heard he was an avid mountain climber whose goal was to one day climb Mount Everest. He also raced around the countryside on his 2-year-old Ducati motorcycle. Red may have looked like a geek, but he was an adventurer at heart. When he realized I was sitting here, he waved me over and started opening boxes and setting up equipment. It turned out to be another telescope, but more modern, and instead of looking through an eyepiece, you looked at a computer monitor. The resolution was better too. When he focused it on Cheryl's computer, I could clearly read everything on the screen. She was working on her email. There was nothing important in it, just enterprise business. Without looking up, Red spoke from the computer console attached to the telescope. "Once Ian is done with his business, we won't need to look out the window to see what's on your wife's computer. As early as this afternoon, we'll be firmly entrenched in their server network and have access to everything they have. We will be able to spy and search and monitor any of their computers. We will also be able to copy all of their incoming and outgoing traffic. You may not know this, but Ian was the best hacker UCLA ever produced." Red busied himself setting up another computer with a huge 60-inch monitor. He didn't say what the big screen was for, but I had my suspicions. Just before he left, he placed a big red button on my desk and stood smiling. "Press it," he said. When I did, all the computer screens in the room flashed up, showing diagrams and spreadsheets of landmass computer systems and their accounting systems. If someone comes in who doesn't know what we're doing, like landmass management, just press the red button and everything changes to what you see now. It's like a screensaver, but with landmass data on the displays. It's all nonsense, but it'll look like we're doing the audit we're supposed to be doing. He smiled and walked away. Adriana and Mandy showed up just before lunch and sat at the telescope's computer. They maneuvered the telescope, and the display gave a great view of Cheryl's office. A few minutes later, a man entered the office. It was no longer the same man from the day before. He was older, with gray hair and a solid paunch. I just stared at the screen, hoping he hadn't come in for the same foot massage. Mandy looked at me. Marty, maybe you should come down to my office for a while, she said with concern in her voice. You might not want to watch if it happens again like yesterday. I don't want your blood pressure to spike again. I didn't say a word. I just got up and left the room. An hour later, Mandy came into the room and sat next to me at the computer where I was playing blackjack. She put her arms around my chest and rested her head on my shoulder. I realized she was in pain. Marty, we've got it all recorded. Red set it up so we can record what's going on in case you need it in the future, maybe for a lawyer or something. I suggest you don't watch this. It'll only hurt you more than it's hurting you right now. Come on, I'll get you something to drink. Mandy took my hand and led me back to my office, which now looked more like a modern war room than a 1930s mausoleum. The large 60-inch monitor now displayed 40 different smaller screens showing hallways, offices, doorways, and the like. I just stood there and watched. This is the image from the security cameras on the 20th through 24th floors across the street, Ian said as he walked over to me. We can see pretty much all of their offices, everything but the bathrooms and a few top managers' offices. And we can control everything from this monitor, zooming in on one particular camera or series of cameras. We can even record all or just individual cameras. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah, I said, not knowing what else to say. Come and see this boss, Red said from across the room. I walked over and stood behind him. He sat with his arms crossed and smiled. You're watching your wife work on the computer. Right now she's writing a query to someone about the cost of the microchips used in their robotic arms. It's no big deal. While we're watching this, I'm downloading all the emails she's sent or received in the last 5 years. She keeps her schedule on her computer and synchronizes it with her smartphone. I haven't looked through it yet, but it may be important later, so I copied it as well. I can do the same with any of their computers. Their security sucks. I went back to my desk and sat down, not knowing what else to do. A few minutes later, my cell phone rang. Quiet! Everyone be quiet! Red called out. Go ahead, boss. Hello? Hi, honey, it's me, Cheryl said. I immediately walked over to the telescope control panel and saw Cheryl sitting at her desk, holding the phone to her ear. She was alone. Hi, how's it going? You worked late last night. I didn't get a chance to snuggle next to you in bed. I was just calling to tell you how much I missed you. Are you going to be late again tonight? I couldn't look her in the eye yet. My mind was still swarming with thoughts of what was going on, how long, what she had done, and the like. I had to lie to her, just like she'd lied to me. Maybe. This audit is turning into a real challenge. We're on an incredibly tight deadline, and it's going to take a lot of hard work to meet it. Everyone here is working their asses off. And to top it all off, I got a call from my dad. He's having some kind of plumbing problem again. I may have to go down there this weekend and clean his pipes. Sorry. And I was hoping I could have some one-on-one time with you tonight. I bought a new outfit last weekend, but haven't had a chance to try it out yet. Sounds nice. Too bad I'm going to miss it. Maybe next weekend we can plan on going somewhere special to show it off. No way. It's not something I'll wear in public. It's just for you. For your eyes only. Okay, I get it. Tell you what. Why don't you make a reservation at the hotel next weekend, and we'll go get pampered at the spa and have dinner at the steakhouse. After that, I can show off my present. Ooh, that sounds great. I'll try to book one of their suites. I'm looking forward to it. I'll have everything done by next Friday and call you from my dad so you know when I'll be home. Okay, sounds like a plan. Love you. Bye. Bye. I couldn't bring myself to say love you back. I watched as she put the phone back in the cradle, but this time she didn't point a finger. What had changed in this phone conversation, I wondered? Yes. Jackie stood in the doorway, arms raised above her head like she'd just scored the winning goal in the Super Bowl. Somebody get the second partition up for the camera. Here, boss. Catch. She tossed something in my direction, and I instinctively reached out and caught it. It was my keys. What are you doing with my keys? I asked. Just finished hooking up your house to pictures and sound. Everything that happens there will be recorded here. She stood, pointing to the computer monitor that showed my kitchen. Every room in your house, including the bathroom, has a camera. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah, not bad, I replied sadly. And for the rest of the day, everyone worked on different computers. I guess they divided their time between watching Cheryl and doing the audit. At least I hoped they were working on the audit. One by one, they said goodnight to each other and disappeared out the door. The last to leave was Mandy. Listen, Marty, go get something to eat, she said, standing in front of my desk. Don't drink too much, but do whatever you need to do to take your mind off things. Maybe go to a movie. Tomorrow's Friday, and I'll be here early to finish my part of the audit. Get out of here for the weekend and think about what you want to do. On Monday, we'll all get together and talk. Remember, you're not alone. You have friends. Good night. When she left, I sat down and thought about it. I thought about all the options. I even wrote down on a piece of paper the possible solutions to the situation, the pros and cons of each. I wanted to handle it like every other audit I'd ever done, but the emotional baggage was too much. In the end, I left the paper on the table and walked away. I got home at midnight. I took Mandy's advice and went out for a nice dinner somewhere, but I wasted my money. I just couldn't eat all the steak I ordered. When I got home, Cheryl was asleep again, so I packed my clothes for Friday and the weekend, took a quiet shower, and went to bed in the guest bedroom. Once again, I was out of the house before she woke up in the morning. Trying to avoid the woman who was my entire life until 2 days ago was difficult both physically and emotionally. Through the telescope, I watched Cheryl walk into her office. She had her usual coffee and bagel, and the first thing she did was look at her schedule for the day. At noon, I could clearly see the sign that said all four. I had no idea what it meant, but I knew it was no good. Whatever all four meant, it probably meant the end of my marriage. Today, I decided to endure the pain and see what she was up to, despite my team's objections. I had the team together for a few minutes when the last one came in. Guys, I need to talk to you, I began the meeting. I can't take much longer, so I've made some decisions. Decisions are what I have to do here, so I'm trying to earn my paycheck. First, no matter what happens out there today, I'm going to sit by the monitor and watch. I'd rather be alone because I may not be able to handle it very well, but I also don't want you guys calling 911 for me again. So decide which one of you will sit with me during lunch. Secondly, this weekend I'm going to sort things out and decide how to proceed. Things aren't looking too good for Cheryl and I right now, but I don't know exactly what I want to do. Whatever it is, I may need your help. You suggested it, and I'm going along with it. But if things are going to go well, I want you as far away from me as possible. You must in no way suffer the consequences of my marriage. It's out of the question. That's the way it's going to be. Third, I want the audit completed by next Friday, and I want all this equipment out of here. Everyone went back to their desks and left me alone. Every now and then I glanced at the telescope monitor to see what Cheryl was up to. The closer it got to noon, the more nervous I became. When I looked up around 11:30, she was gone. Marty, I'm here to be your babysitter, Mandy said as she closed and locked my door. Everyone wanted to do it, but I screamed the loudest. Everyone's here for you, as a matter of fact. My heart lifted when I realized there were people willing to go the extra mile to help a friend. Hopefully, I could be that good of a friend if they ever needed me. I looked up, seeing movement on the telescope monitor, and saw that Cheryl was back in sight. However, she had changed her clothes. She was now wearing the little black dress she had described to me on the phone yesterday. She was right. It was absolutely stunning, and I wouldn't want her to show up in it in public. Mandy reached out and took my hand in hers. I could feel her trembling as we sat and watched Cheryl primping and brushing her hair and waited. Waiting for who? Suddenly, Cheryl turned toward her office door. She held out her arms, greeting her lover. While I watched in shock, she hugged one man, the same man who had entertained her last time. Another man appeared, and she put her arms around the second man's neck and kissed him. Then a third man appeared, waiting his turn in Cheryl's arms. And then a fourth. Now I knew what all four meant in her appointment book. The one with the paunch and white hair is the man she was with last night, Mandy whispered. We sat and watched. Four men stood in a circle around Cheryl, all of them talking and laughing. She was the center of attention and really enjoying herself. And so did her entourage. All four men spread out around the room at once. Two on the couch against the far wall and two in office chairs across from her desk. They all turned slightly in the direction Cheryl was standing, in the corner by the window. From where the telescope was set up, there was a great view of everyone and everything going on out there. And then, that's pretty obvious. They were clearly having fun. I felt Mandy's arms around my shoulders. When I turned to look at her, she was facing the monitor and crying. She was crying because of me. Our marriage was dead. My heart was beating fast, but not so fast that my blood pressure skyrocketed. I was surprisingly calm. Perhaps I already knew what I was going to do. I heard Mandy's quiet sobs on my shoulder again. It's over, Mandy, I said quietly. She sat up and looked at the monitor and then at me. How are you? She asked. Not too good, but much better than the other day. Right now, I'm completely numb. I don't think I'm going to have a very pleasant weekend when things settle down. What can I do? I don't know. I'm definitely not going home. I'll go to my father and talk to him. He's always looked at things pretty rationally. Maybe he can give me some advice. Remember, I'm here for you. We're all here. Just ask. Thanks, Mandy. I appreciate it. And if I don't say anything else to anyone today, thank them for me too. I will. Mandy left me alone with my thoughts. A few minutes later, Red came in and sat down at one of the computers. He didn't make eye contact with me. Mandy must have told him what had happened. Half an hour later, 4 pictures appeared on the large 60-inch monitor. Underneath them was an organizational chart of the Enterprise Research and Development Corporation. I thought you might be interested to know. These are 4 guys. All of them are your wife's direct supervisors. They are 2 levels below upper echelon management and directly supervise her work. I have their personnel files if you need them. In another hour, I'll know everything about their lives. Finances, family, everything. I'll put everything in a file on your computer. I didn't utter a word. Red continued to work in silence, and I sat and watched the faces of the 4 men. Adriana was the last to leave and stopped by to see if I was okay. She listened to the details of Cheryl's lunch session and softly said she wished me luck for the weekend. When I was alone again, the pain began in earnest. I needed to distract myself and think. I looked at the telescope monitor and saw Cheryl packing up her desk. I picked up the phone and dialed home, leaving Cheryl a message that I was going to my dad's house for the weekend. I then called my dad and asked him if he wanted to have guests over for the weekend. I don't know how he did it, but he sensed something was wrong and told me to come over. 15 minutes later, I was on my way. Next chapter. Monday morning, I walked into the office of the Landmass Development Group with more energy and a sense of purpose than I had had in the past few days. My father is a wise man and helped me figure out what I wanted to do. He didn't tell me what to do. He just helped me navigate the ocean I was drowning in. I made a decision. I knew what was going to happen. Now I needed my team to make it work. Mad, Jackie walked over to where I was making coffee and stood watching me. You okay, boss? She asked, her black eyes looking through me. I'm fine. Thanks for asking. Without another word, she wrapped her arms around me and hugged me tightly. Am I breaking anything? Asked Ian from the doorway. We parted, feigning consternation and guilt. We stepped back and smiled at the little Asian girl. She smiled back, her beautiful smile lighting up the room. She extended her hand to me as I passed and escorted me to my office. When Red showed up, I asked him to gather his forces. I wanted to have a council of war. His smile was from ear to ear. Everyone reassembled in my office. An in-meeting sign hung on the door. Guys, I've come to a decision. I actually had a lot of help from my father in making the decision. Anyway, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to my lawyer today and start the divorce proceedings. Once the papers are ready, I will send them to her office at lunchtime. Hopefully, the bailiff will interrupt one of her little attempts. Then I'll call her and let her know I've been following everything she's been doing. I will tell her that she has a choice, me or her lovers. If she chooses me, there are 3 things she needs to do. File a harassment lawsuit naming her 4 supervisors and the company management. She should resign. And finally, I will ask her to explain why she did this to me. If she does everything I ask without hesitation, I will postpone the divorce and see if we can work things out. I'm not sure if it will work out after what I've seen, but I'll give us a chance. If she doesn't do any of these 3 things, I'll email all the R&D staff at the facility short videos of her activities. In addition, the wives of 4 of her bosses will receive the videos and be offered source material. I know it's vindictive, but I need to do something, anything at all, to let these men know that they can't take advantage of Cheryl and me. I need them to feel the same pain I feel. Maybe revenge is wrong, but right now I don't care. Now you guys need to get all this spy equipment out of here, out of my house and out of their systems. I don't want to leave any trace that we were here. Pack everything up and get it out of here tonight. Everything Cheryl related, pack it separately and give it to Adriana to keep for me. Keep backups, but don't keep anything that could get you in trouble. But before you do all that, I need help with email, if it comes to that. Red, can you do that for me? Already done, boss. I'll set everything up on your computer so you can't be tracked. With the push of a button, the building across the street will explode from everyone simultaneously gasping when they see it. Let's not get too dramatic, Red, I said, smiling. I just want a neat nuclear strike and pray I don't have to use it. Boss, Red said, embarrassed, I may have some more information for you about what's going on over there. Do you want it now or later, in private? Hell, everyone here knows everything, so a little more won't matter. Come on. I'm pretty sure I know when this all started and why. I've been going through your wife's emails for the last year and found one that says she's in line for a major promotion when one of the managers retires this spring. This email is from one of her bosses, Brad Paxton. When I looked at her calendar a few days after this email, I saw that Paxton's name is on her calendar for lunch every Wednesday. Boss, I think she was having fun with her boss to guarantee herself a promotion. It seems to have started last October. In December, another manager's name appeared on her lunch schedule, but on Thursdays. It's the old fat guy. I'm only speculating, but I think that somehow the old fat guy found out what they were doing and threatened to blab if he wasn't put on the schedule. I found an email from him with a thinly veiled threat to that effect. Then in January, a third manager's name appears on the schedule on Tuesdays in January, and starting in April, a fourth on Mondays. Once a month, she gets them all together on a Friday, as you saw last week. She doesn't seem to deal with any other managers or coworkers, just these 4. Her weekly lunch schedule is already full, and there are no other managers anyway. I've copied all the necessary emails to your computer along with her calendar. Oh, and you should know that there was no activity at your house over the weekend. She spent a couple of quiet days lounging around the house, reading, taking a long bath, and getting a little sun. I think she's just fiddling around at work. Just thought you should know. Thanks, Red, I said, trying to fit new bits of information into what I already knew. I appreciate your diligence, all of you. I also appreciate your involvement in my life and your friendship. I will never forget it. Everyone gave me the best gift. They smiled at me. I looked back at my friends and smiled back. All right, gang, let's get down to business. And I want everything regarding the landmass audit on my desk by 5 o'clock today. Also, team, I'm going home this afternoon to pick up some stuff. I need someone to watch her across the street and call me if she leaves the building. I'll let you all know where I'm staying as soon as I get settled. No, said Mandy and Adriana at the same time. Mandy frowned, turned to Adriana, wagged her finger at her and said, No, I already told you, Marty, that you can stay in our guest room. I even changed the linens there. Once you get everything you want out of your house, you'll be staying with us. Don't argue with me. That's the way it's going to be. Okay, I know when not to argue. I'll call you when I'm done and get directions. The meeting ended and everyone dispersed. Red sat at one computer and set up my email nuke. Ian and Jackie started taking apart and packing up the equipment in the room, everything except the telescope and computer monitor. We'll need those when the shit hits the fan. Mandy and Adriana went to another office and started packing up all the landmass paperwork. I'm afraid our initial calculation proved correct. We won't be able to pull landmass's collective asses out of the fire this time. I found a divorce attorney near our house and made an appointment for the afternoon. At lunchtime, Adriana walked over to where I was sitting in Jan's office and handed me a cell phone. I didn't want to be near the telescope monitor during lunch. I'd already seen too much. Marty, call Cheryl. We need you to call and see if she behaves the same way she did last time after you hang up. We need the videotape. With regret, I picked up the phone and pressed her office number on speed dial. When she answered, her voice sounded exhausted, like she had just run for the phone. But I knew she had done otherwise. In my imagination, she was lying with her back on the table, legs spread wide, and one of her lovers was beating between them. I didn't need to see it. My imagination was conjuring up painful images as it was. When we hung up, I looked over at Adriana, who was standing outside the door looking down the hallway. She waved toward my office and then turned to me. "Thanks, boss. We made it," she said. "Did she?" I asked. Adriana just nodded and walked away. Next chapter. Monday and Tuesday, I stayed late at work and successfully avoided Cheryl at home. Wednesday at 12:15 p.m. was the appointed time for everything to happen. I spent Tuesday preparing a final report for Landmass on their financial situation. I needed office space for a couple more days, so I just put the report on my desk until I finished what I had to do. Red told me that he had figured out a way to remotely unlock Cheryl's office door. You see, all the doors in their offices are equipped with an electronic lock. Each employee has a microchip in their ID badge, and they hold it up to the door lock to unlock any door. To lock the door once they are inside, they press the lock-unlock button. There's a little light next to each doorknob. Locked doors light up red, unlocked doors light up green. One of their computers controls who has access to which rooms and logs all entrances and exits. And guess who's running that computer now? When the time is right, I'll unlock her door and then, well, you know what happens next. He was very proud of himself, so much so that he even smiled. And Red didn't smile too often. Wednesday morning was quiet and especially solemn. We all gathered for a late breakfast and then retired to the quiet of my temporary office at Landmass. At exactly noon, Cheryl's lover showed up. It was the same Brad I had seen on the first day. We all sat around the telescope monitor and watched as they talked for a while, and then got down to business. While we were watching, the two lovers suddenly turned their heads toward the door and began frantically putting their clothes back in place. At this time, a man in a suit appeared and stood in front of the table. He said something we couldn't hear, but we all realized what it was, and then held out a large manila envelope. Cheryl took it, and he turned and walked away. Cheryl slumped heavily in her chair, and Brad was left standing there looking stupid. We watched as she pulled out the papers and stared at them. Brad tried to take the papers from her, but she recoiled, and everything went flying all over the table. They shattered, and the pictures fell face up. She carefully picked up one photo at a time and looked at them. In one picture, she was showing her middle finger on her phone. In another, she was having fun. She turned her head and looked out the window. She ran over to the window and put her palms against the glass, looking at our building. I could clearly see the look on her face. It was one of utter terror. She had been captured, and she knew it. She also knew that her world had just changed, and not for the better. I pressed Cheryl's office number on the speed dial of my cell phone. When it rang, she turned and looked at the phone like it was a rattlesnake shaking at her. Slowly, she walked over to the phone and picked it up. Her answer sounded almost like a sob. "Hello," I said with a growl. "Tell Brad to leave." She sank back into the chair. She sat silent for a long time, resting her chin on her chest before she came to her senses. Over the phone, I heard her say, "Brad, go away. It's my husband." And he started to argue with her when she jumped up and yelled at him, "Just get the hell out! He knows all about us, asshole. If I were you, I'd get out of here and run as far away as possible. Marty may be an accountant, but he can kick your ass from here until Sunday. Now get out." I waited for him to leave. Cheryl sat back down and turned her chair to face the window. "Cheryl, if our marriage has any chance of surviving, you must listen carefully and do what I say," I said. "No arguments, no hesitation. You have one chance and one chance only. Do you understand?" Through tears, she replied, "Yes, I understand." "I'm not kidding, Cheryl. You only have one chance to save everything. Are you sure you understand?" "Yes," she wheezed. "Okay, now here's what's going to happen. First, you're going to quit your job. Second, you're going to file a lawsuit against each of your 4 lovers and against Enterprise as a whole. Third, you're going to explain to me why." I saw her freeze and her empty hand rise to cover her mouth. I also heard sobs on the other end of the phone line. I walked over to my computer, holding my hand over the Enter key. As soon as I hit Enter, everyone at Enterprise and the wives of the 4 managers would get a videotape of her actions. I hated to do it, but I did it. I gave her a chance to calm down and waited for a response. I waited for a very long time with my hand in the air. The first words I heard on the phone were, "But Marty, I've invested a lot in Enterprise. I'm going to—" I pressed Enter. I also hit Off on my phone. "Okay, guys," I said. "Let's get the rest of the equipment out of here and head home. Take the rest of the day off. I have a meeting with the landmass executive at 2 o'clock to give him the bad news. Go home, and I'll see you at the office tomorrow." I glanced at the telescope display and saw Cheryl screaming and banging on the glass of her office window. Red reached down and turned off the display, putting me out of my misery, but I couldn't stop staring at the blank screen. Before I could do or say anything else, all 5 of my group, my team of expert accountants, my computer geeks, my best friends in the whole world, came over and hugged me. Even Red. Everyone understood what had just happened and shared my sadness. In my entire life, I had never felt such love and compassion as I did now. I had the best group of friends in the world, and I knew I could weather any storm with them. I released my emotions and let the tears fall. End of part 1. Part the 2nd of may be coming out in 12 hours. Write in the comments if you're waiting for it. Also, give a like under this video and subscribe to my channel. I hope you enjoyed this video.